afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are tuning in around the world. Welcome to Tipping Point. I am your host, Andrew Potkowitz, and I am joined today by Kanchan Soman from Crum Forster. Welcome.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for having me here. Really a pleasure and a delight.
Of course, I'm delighted to have you here. I apologize, we had some technical difficulties, so we're kicking off late. I will chalk it up to the Wi-Fi where I am currently staying in Asheville, North Carolina. It is relatively weak. The scenes are beautiful, but the Wi-Fi is not great, which is how I want it for the rest of the long weekend that I have. I don't know that we first met, I think, last year at Fulcrum Digital's Tech Exchange. We didn't really get a chance to talk extensively, but you were a featured speaker for that event, and I was really impressed and was very eager to get you on the show. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to go through a lot of topics today: digital transformation, artificial intelligence, data analytics, your personal journey. You are currently at Crum Forster, and you are the AVP of Data and Analytics. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell us? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Probably there could be a little lag, so I'll probably pause for your question, take a 2-minute pause, and then start replying. But yes, I am the Assistant Vice President. I lead the Data and Analytics team at Crum Forster. Within my team, we do a lot of data-related stuff, with the goal being providing data solutions so businesses can make informed decisions through data visualizations, which includes Tableau, dashboards, reports, data engineering, which is gathering all the data in the most and storing it in the most efficient way. And then with the cloud and AI team we forming that team in the last 3 to 4 years, and being able to provide solutions in that area as well.
Excellent. Thanks for the background there. For folks tuning in today, we are live out across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you have any questions or comments along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat of the respective platforms, and we'll get to them as we go. So Kanchan, can you tell me a little bit about your professional background, sort of where it started, how you I don't want to say fell into, how and why you sort of pursued a tech and then a data career?
Sure. I basically was born in India, raised in India till my engineering, right? So there itself, there's so much of STEM in India and with what I liked, I was always and have always been a STEM student with a lot of interest in science and math. In my family background, my dad was an engineer. My siblings are engineers. One is civil and the other is electronics. And people around me as well. And now on my husband's side, everybody's an engineer. So you can get an idea of how popular some of those fields are. But also, it was also a very natural way for me to, be a part of these subjects and pursue something within it. So I completed my bachelor's of computer engineering in India, and then started working in India for a few years. And then got an opportunity to come to the United States, where I completed my master's in computer science. After that, so it's been computer engineering and computer science, and doing my master's in computer science here did help me learn a lot of things that I had learned in a different way in India. So it was writing an operating system or doing language interpreters and kind of going a little beyond and deep and getting a lot of hands-on compared to theory. So it was a good experience. After that, I joined General Electric Research and Development. My role there was, and I got the opportunity to work with different GE businesses, including GE Power Systems, some work with GE aircraft engines, but mostly on the software and application side. Then in my career, I had kids, and I decided to take and that came very naturally to me. I was very comfortable with that decision to kind of take a break for about 4 to 5 years and be with them as they grew up. But then when I started back, I started working for a startup that was responsible for maintaining inventory, warehouse solutions, like your inventory and your transportations, logistics for Panasonic. I worked there as well. And in that journey, in that process, I got introduced to data. I mean, I was mostly on the front end side, or trying to build client server applications and ensuring your business access layers or your data access layers are all tied together. But mostly on the BI side is when that opportunity came sometime in 2013, 2014. And that's where I got introduced to my reporting. And that's when I realized that I really love data. I really loved how, I mean, I really loved finding more about it, mining it. And I found the power in data that could help businesses understand how they are, like more of the descriptive analytics. How are we doing? Understand those KPIs to make informed decisions. And there was always this strong urge to present them in the most beautiful way, in the most intuitive way, in the most in a way that could just make them take those quick decisions. So so data integrity, data anomalies, outliers, reconciliation, all that. I've always been excited to do that, and I still do try to do some of that. Sorry, something
No,
happened.
that's fine. Everyone, we sometimes do use sets in this show, and I think our set designers need to anchor that frame a little more securely next time around.
Securely, yes. And so, and that's when I that, and then after that, my work in startup, I basically joined Crum and Forster as a data manager, and then within that role, I grew from a manager to a director to an AVP.
So,
Within
so
that process.
Kanchan, before we dive into the Crum and Forster piece, because I do want to dive in pretty deep there, I'm curious. Growing up in a family of parents who were engineers, you said, and what has become a family of engineers, did you feel, I'm going to give you three options here, and it may be none of these. Did you feel pressure to go into that line of work because your parents were in that line of work? Were you inspired to go into that line of work because of your parents? What was the third option? Or was it just natural because that's the environment you grew up in, and therefore it sort of went without saying that you would go into the field? Or something else, or any
Something else.
combination?
I don't think I was pressured, definitely. But I think it was a combination of two and three, with three being more. As I said, I always did well in school. I was among the top three students, and always had good grades. I did like the artistic. I mean, I did pursue a lot of artistic passions in school, like like for example, enrolling in education competition where you kind of give a speech, or you kind of enact or narrate or take part in skits and drama. But that was always a hobby. Never did I think like I want to get into that field and do something deeper. So I personally believe, I always loved doing it. Never did I think this is not the right thing for me. Though one I remember is I at one point wanted to become a doctor. I really passionately felt that it was great to help people and I would be able to do, but I could not pursue that career. And but yeah, it's very natural.
It's interesting, and thanks for sharing that experience. Um, I think folks generally, and I'm not back. I have no science to back this. But growing up similar to you, I had passions for math and science, right? And it was because there were definitive answers, right? There's data there, and then at the end of the exercise, like if you're right or wrong, right? Because it's black and white, as it were. I certainly enjoyed the arts and the arts classes, as it were, but this idea of this never-ending creative process, right? That when is creative perfect, and like who's to judge what is perfect? My mind's not built like that. So I think it's interesting when you trace back someone's sort of career back to like what they were passionate about, and none of us really know what we want to do and what we're going to do when we're younger. Even when we're in school, it's sort of like I'm getting my degree and then we'll see where it goes. But I think those folks who are like math and science oriented generally will look for that thing professionally where you're able to get answers out of whatever the madness or chaos might be.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a little bit last week when we connected. This idea of there was a period in time for, let's call it a decade, 5 to 10 years, let's say, where it was all about collecting. It was about big data, collecting all the data, right? But we didn't really have the tools, resources, bandwidth, what have you, to do anything with it. But I think collectively we knew at some point we would. And it sounds and feels like that's sort of where we are and where we're getting to now. All right, so you joined Crum and Forster 8 years ago, roughly. Do I have that
2016,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
2016, 8 years ago. Yeah. And it's been a journey where I have grown every year, is what I would say. So I've added more to my team. I started as an individual contributor. And in the next year, I started leading a team of about 5 people. That grew to 10, and now I have about 30 plus people under me with new teams that I've built. I think the way I've seen my career is I've started to work on something, understood it well, implemented and executed, and then I want to learn something more, and I want to get into a field that will kind of uh, uh, be a part of what I'm doing, like not completely something outside, but would help me achieve new targets or help the company grow in a certain direction. So that's always been how I've grown myself and my team.
So getting into the data and analytics piece, and understanding now, you have some pretty significant AI projects going on, which we don't need to get into. I'm sure that's proprietary information, but generally speaking, going from when you started in the data and analytics field,
Mhm.
the tools you had then versus the tools you have now to use, not just in back of the house operations, but for let's call them partner or client facing interactions, the folks that Crum works with, and how those relationships run. How have you seen that evolution, over the past year from where it started and where it's going?
Sure. I mean, as I said, a lot of times the basic essence of data analytics always stays the same, right? Which is giving meaningful, which is giving data so that, or meaningful data or trustworthy data, so businesses can make informed decisions. So no matter what changes in the process, the essence of that team or that functionality stays the same. So, and what I've realized is there is no one tool that serves all. So you cannot buy Tableau and say, this is it, everybody has to use Tableau. You have to be a little adaptable to the fact that it's going to be a hybrid solution. You have an audience of 2,800 people, people who understand visualizations, people who understand tabular layouts, right? So how do you kind of understand your audience and cater to the tools, and then find the appropriate tools to support that? So some things we have always believed in. So we continue to do that. In terms of how tools have changed, we are trying to always, we have primarily stayed with Tableau as our data visualization, let's say, 8 years ago. And now at 2024, we are questioning, do we need to use another tool that is more cost effective, that aligns more with the kind of business that we do, which is financial services. And people who are in financial services like to see their data in tabular format, click on it, do different calculations. So do we need to get into something like a Power BI that would give me an Excel output better? So there's always there's something that you have to keep your eyes open to see, is there anything new on the market that you can adopt to and grow with it, try it out, proof of concepts, and decide if you can be a part of it. When I started somewhere in 2018, big data, with its velocity, veracity, and volume, right, is something like, oh, we need to build a Hadoop platform. We need to build like Spark and other layers to kind of process that big data. But then you ask the question, do you even have big data? And like then those, so even if there's a trend out there, you ask those questions, is your business has that kind of a data for which you need to adopt a platform? So even if things are changing, you may not want to change that quickly, or it may not be the right tool for you, because it's based on a assumption that you have to have this volume of data coming at 1,000 messages on LinkedIn per second. We don't have 1,000 messages coming per microsecond to my network. So I don't really need that framework. So we've been making decisions where you don't need to change.
Right.
But I also remember that moment where we started working on intelligent document processing initiative.
Okay.
The whole point of it was making claims automation, right? Claims processing and making
And sorry
that.
to interrupt you, just for the folks in the audience, Crum and Forster is in the insurance space. I probably should have clarified that up front. So, we're talking claims
So yeah,
documentation.
Crum Forster offers a property and casualty insurance within United States. Besides being in the regulatory admitted products, it also provides surplus and specialty products, special solutions, along with surety and accident and health. So I say, along with some travel also. So they all come under Crum Forster. But yeah, we are in the insurance business, which falls into the financial services category. So that for me, so when we started on automating the claims processing, right now at that point it was very manual. People in operations were actually reading those PDF documents, extracting the claim numbers from there, typing those claim numbers, getting the adjuster name, and then assigning a person to that claim document for it to work on, right?
Mhm.
So we said, okay, then we had heard about OCR, where it could be done automated way, right? You could have an OCR process that reads your documents. So the whole concept of digitizing your unstructured data, which is extracting content from your unstructured data, which could be audio, video, PDFs, anything that is not a table. Um, and we jumped on that initiative, understood how the AWS platforms worked, what were the services available like AWS Extract, AWS Comprehend. So those were some of the new learnings at that point. We made that project successful. We were at, and because of that project, we now process 200,000 emails per year. We scan 2 million pages every year, and we've been able to save the time on a daily basis equivalent to 3 full-time employees for the
Okay.
operations team.
So
So
you're not just reducing your administrative overhead. I imagine you're also significantly reducing the error rate, right? If anytime I hear someone saying, looking at a document and then typing it in, it sort of
oh
gives
my God.
me, it
I
gives
mean,
me anxiety.
it did. So when I heard, like, what do you do right now? He says, oh no, we open the document, we quickly grab the claim number, we figure out and we assign. I said, oh no, 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 no. Is that what we do the entire day? So giving more meaning to their work.
Yeah.
But I remember like when generative AI came, right?
Mhm.
We as part of our initial learnings sometime in January or February of 2023, because Chat GPT went live November 2022, people started talking about it. It became the most popular tool, 100 million users in 2 months, better than Instagram and all of that. But there was a wow moment for me when I started understood the power of generative AI. Besides everything else, besides the whole generation, how quickly it streams and shows the responses or the communication or making things better. But I saw that it had this power of dynamically during runtime being able to determine entities from your documents without any machine learning involved, without any training involved, and just with one API call. So that with just one prompt or with just one API call, it made things so easier for my domain, for my use case. I would always like to put that around it. Because it had been trained on a lot of insurance related documents and nomenclature. So it knew. So if I gave it a document that had a policy number, a claim number, an insured name, an agent name, expenses, paid losses, and if I say go and extract these 5 elements in one API call, it was able to do all of that. Something that required my team to build like at least 2 to 3 pages of code, and to some extent making it a little bit more rule based and telling
Mhm.
what is a claim number, what is a CNF claim number look like. I mean, that's still a little bit of fine tuning, but we had to say that we had to give it more instructions on how to extract the data. And for me, like that instantly changed as to how I'm working right now in terms of the AI piece, like where I was in 2018, where I'm right now, and how I want to use this new technology to make my team more productive and in a most cost effective way, and for my domain, for my use case, uh, it to work properly and me to be able to trust that extraction and
Mhm.
use that claim numbers that it extracts and go against our database and find more information and uh,
Yeah,
improve the
it's
productivity.
pretty remarkable how advanced Gen AI has been able to bring efficiency and velocity from everything from the most menial of tasks of writing an email, right? Or writing a performance review up through extracting data, you know, collating it. Is that the right word? I'm going to use collate, and then putting out the output with various calculations involved as well. It's the thing that 1980s sci-fi movies were based on, right? This sort of world in which there's intelligent, somewhat sentient, automated technologies out there. So it's pretty awe-inspiring. You made a really good point, which I'd like to dig in on a little bit, which is, do you even have big data, right? And I think it's the kind of term, experience platform or customer data platform. There's such a broad term and sort of a vague, nebulous sort of term. When you hear the term big data, when you're talking about big data, what does that mean to you, big data?
For me, big data is data that satisfies the three V's. The first V is volume. So and you define, there are definitions of what volume is. So if you have huge amounts of data coming in, with the size of the data is huge, I think that accounts for volume, and the velocity is the speed at which it is coming. So if that is tremendously high, you do want to have a framework that is able to process those messages or those events that come in. And the third is the variety, and the fourth is the veracity. But I will just focus on the first three V's: volume, velocity, and variety, which is unstructured, structured, like within that, like semi-structured, right? So emails, videos, audios, text, blogs, documents, JSONs, all that coming in through multiple ways, and being able to process that. In our case, I don't think in our case, when I said we did not apply, according to me, was we definitely didn't have the velocity at which we were, and hopefully we don't get claim emails at that big velocity, because that would be a problem. Volume is something, but again, something that we had a good handle over on how we were storing some of those documents, but it did not suffice enough for a use case where we would implement a very big data framework at that point.
It occurs to me, and I may be way behind the curve here, that these are the 4 V's of big data. Is that just a happy coincidence that those words were perfect? You didn't have to massage them at all. Velocity, volume, veracity, and what's the 4th V?
Volume, velocity, variety, and veracity.
Variety.
Veracity is being able to trust it, right? Veracity is the trustworthiness, and volume is, of course, the size, and velocity is the speed.
That's an easy way to remember it.
And can you believe it? I remember I still have that study group. I started a study group within my company called as the Big Data Study Group.
Okay.
And my first presentation was on big data, what it is, and defining those V's. So those are very clear. So that's how I know them so clear, because I have a study group that I held every month on a Friday. It started with big data, understanding Hadoop, understanding the whole theory of big data, and then slowly getting into some machine learning models. But then what we have right now is any data topic that is interesting, like Snowflake data, data warehouse, or data management tools, data protection, data verification, data retention, or data management, or data lineage, data catalog. So anything to do with data, we talk in that study group that I have, and we promote people to think like, you don't really have to have 1 full hour to talk about data. Pick up a topic that is interesting, that is forward-looking, something that others could learn from.
It makes me chuckle when you talk about being in a study group. I imagine outside of work hours where you get together and just talk about data, and going back to what we talked about earlier, which is like, growing up and going through school and being a science and math person, or like an arts person, or language person. There are people whose eyes would glaze over and be like, that sounds like the last thing I want to do. And there's people who are like, this is really exciting. And it just made me chuckle.
I was telling my daughter, and we were discussing, she was watching some old videos. And I was telling her, like, I like science and I like teaching so much that I remember drawing a map of India somewhere on my wall, and then pretending to have a class in front of it and say, to the north are the Himalayas, to the west is the Arabian Sea, the east is the Bay of Bengal. And I used to keep on teaching an art, like imaginary class. But that's where I feel some of that, attraction towards science and learning.
Yeah, I love it. it's a very like endearing image of you as a child, sort of holding, educated, going through this exercise of which I imagine down the road helped you in your public speaking and sort of presentation skills. So,
I think I never got, I don't, I mean, I'm still learning. Like, there's so much opportunity to be a better speaker, to listen and then talk, to talk slowly, right? Things that you learn over as you watch yourself. But I guess I was never very scared of going in front of a big audience. So if if my manager tells me, "Can you give a talk on this?" I would say, "Yeah, okay," and then I'll prepare for it. But I'm not scared. So that, I don't know. Probably that stems from genetics. I don't know, but I'm okay. So
I mean,
I'm
I am Jewish, and I grew up in a Jewish household. My father was a doctor. My mother was an attorney. Um, and I know that there's some very close similarities between Indian households and Jewish households, which is loud, a lot of debate, a lot of parents, really instilling in their children, to sort of drive and perfection, all those things.
yeah,
I imagine that and again, I'm just, I don't know if this is fact or just sort of how I envision it, that your home environment and your parents being professionals in the space, and genetics certainly, sort of helped foster this idea of like, I can do more, I can be better. I always
yeah.
want to be on this journey to learn and strive for more. Which is, it's interesting when you think about that. Um, we had talked about, you talked about how your team how you have grown within Crum and Forster. You've talked about how your team has grown, and now you've got, I think you said 30-ish
30
folks on
plus, yeah,
your team.
30, 33, 34.
And we are all consumers on some level. And we see, whether it's in our professional or personal life, and we see something and we say, that's really cool. I want to explore it. That could be a really good thing for me, for us, or for the company. Um, you have a large company. There are a lot of stakeholders. There are a lot of things you could be doing with the investments you're making, a lot of different areas. Can you talk a little bit about how you go from seeing something that going, well, in a perfect world, this is what I want, this is what I need, we should do it, and then going, okay, but I need to go through, there's steps I need to take in order to prove this and get support. And obviously, the larger the company, sometimes the more challenging it is to get that buy-in. What does that look like for you, and how have you been successful there in getting the initiatives that you're envisioning, brought to life, as it were?
Sure. So the way I've looked at things in the last, as I've progressed in my career, is look at every request as a new opportunity to kind of be a part of something that you know exactly, that you know how to solve exactly, or you would want to find a solution and do it better, right? So every request, any request you get, any task you get, so that's always been my outlook. How can I do this better? I feel also reading about technology, being a little bit aware of what's happening in the outside world, also helps you to understand, oh, they've built a solution that allows me to process my Outlook emails, send a trigger, send this content to generative AI, and then create responses. So, okay, I'm aware of that idea. Now, next time when a project comes, I sometimes then it helps me to connect that dot. So I feel reading and being aware of your technology around you is important. So if I'm in the data and analytics field, reading a little bit more about it, what's happening, has helped me to come up with solutions because and kind of connect the dots there. The third is a proof of concept. So you definitely want to think iterative. You definitely want to do a small proof of concept with your key members who you know will help you deliver that solution with your vision and guiding them, right? So proof of concept, and then the fourth is showing that proof of concept to your manager or to your stakeholder, and then the pros of it. I've always realized there are great pros, but you also have to come up with a very cost-effective solution when you're kind of having a buy-in, and when you're starting something completely new. You have to have plans into how this can be scalable or how it can grow, how it can apply beyond what you're trying to do to other divisions, how this is all cost effective, and then be at it. So I think um, like looking at every task as an opportunity to do something better, applying your technical skills plus your knowledge that you get by reading things about that technology has helped, doing proof of concepts, uh, demoing those proof of concepts, and then having a vision of how this could scale or not just apply to a particular problem but has may have its uh, thing. And then I think there are certain things that I worked on which I thought would be great, which did not. For example, this product that the generative AI assistant that we did for Crum and Foster is really doing well. We have about 400 plus users using it.
Wow.
This other co-pilot bot that we worked on did not gain that popularity, and it will. It's just that there are things like it needs to be communicated better. It needs to be socialized better, right? Even though it's a cost-effective solution, I think the important thing is to quickly understand when your product is not going in the direction that you want it to go and pull the plug off it. Because the last thing you want is to have your large team go in a direction for too long only to realize it's not ending anywhere. So I feel a lot of responsibility in that sense when I work on large projects or when I go beyond a POC, that I'm steering a group of people, and I kind of want to take proper checks at different times.
I'm again smiling because now I live in the marketing side of the world. There's always the sort of product and marketing, sort of that void of, the product may be great, but how do you ensure that people know about it? And what's the
Yeah.
roadmap and timeline for marketing it properly, which is always a delicate dance, as it were. I think everything you said is valid, great, and really great advice. I think one question I'd have on that, and I think we see this a lot, I think, in our world, especially in the tech space. You have the old adage of like fail and fail fast, and that sort of is something that just sort of is ingrained to people. I don't know that I have some fundamental problems with that approach, but how do you know, when you see folks with an idea, how do you know, how do you gauge if you need to abandon it, at what point you abandon it? Meaning, what if you're just taking 2 steps down a path, but it was that 3rd step that would have proven it, right? So there's the balance between pulling the plug too quickly and then the converse, which is waiting too long and throwing good money after bad. Like what do those conversations look like? So I imagine in your career, you have a lot of things you're testing out. You're trying new things. You're testing. How do you measure that and make those decisions?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Also, it is a question that that you have to apply each time to each project slightly differently. I think after you're done with the POC, if the time between your proof of concept and your time to delivery uh, gets into like a year, you kind of know it's not going in the direction. So I think you have to measure that. And what you also realize is that at that point the technology was truly not available. There were truly some technical limitations that did not help you solve the problem. But a year from now, there is technology that could help you solve that problem again. So you put it away, and then probably retake a look at it when you find the right people. I think there is so much of a combination of uh, infrastructure help, people who know how to admin better, like resources and their expertise, right? So if you have the right combination, and if you, I think it's a combination. I mean, we, as much as we say data driven, there's also gut feeling, and sometimes it's as much as I don't want to say,
Yeah.
but I feel when you work with a team who has delivered like 40-50% of of the whole thing, and there's another 30% remaining, and that next 30% is really difficult to achieve, you kind of know that right now it's not capable, but I know with this team plus these two external resources I should be able to do that. So I think it's your experience, your instincts about the people who you work, because otherwise also this is not going anywhere. We need to take a pause on it.
I love that you said that, because I have this visual, in the tech space in particular, of this like junkyard of tech where people stop a project and literally throw it in the dumpster. And for you to say, well, no, just put it on the shelf, because it's not that the idea or the tech is bad, it might just not be the right time. So keep those sort of half-built or semi-built prototypes on the shelf, and then revisit the warehouse in your, every year or 6 months or so. Say, is now the time? Will this, I sort of think of my parents and my mom saying, like, this shirt I've had in my attic for 30 years, like, are you ever going to wear it again? Do you actually need it? Or is it time to throw it away? Is really, I think, really,
remember that the Japanese person, like, what sparks joy? She's I forget her name, but she had this cleansing technique of like letting things go, of things that no longer spark joy. So somewhere you have to believe in that vision or that product. That I've been, for example, this Copilot bot I was talking about. I think the technology that Microsoft now, with its collaboration with OpenAI, they've been able to introduce this whole concept of co-pilots everywhere. So whatever they called as power virtual agents are now called as co-pilots. Their ability for co-pilots to connect to a SharePoint portal or to connect to a conference is got much better than what it was last year. And so now suddenly that spark in that product has come, because it's much easier for us to create like a knowledge bot, because it can quickly connect and use generative AI to kind of create those answers. So you have to believe in that product.
And in the same vein, as I sort of think through that from a marketing perspective, and I've spent the last 10 years of my career in like the tech and e-commerce space, and I always say to sort of newer brands and clients, building an e-commerce website is like opening a store at the top of the Empire State Building. It's going to cost money to get them there. You really have to like do a lot of promotion for them to know to go all the way to the top of the Empire State Building. But once they get there, it better be a good experience, because if it's not only have you not converted them, but they're never going to come back. So to your point about like, we think about some of these older technologies that when they rolled out were not market ready, right? They weren't ready for what people wanted them to do and what they thought they would do. And then coming around a second time, it's even harder, because you have to overcome the initial sort of rejection of it. And, so I think,
when Jeff Bezos was asked the question, what are the things that are going to change in your world, like in the next 10 years? Just, I'll tell you what is not going to change. What is not going to change from Amazon is its customer service, its ability to deliver faster, its ability to give good customer care. So that is not going to change. As long as you have those three pillars strong, everything else can change. But as long as you satisfy those three, that's how you kind of retain that. So things can come and go, but make sure your very essence of how you want to serve your customers stays foundational. And I was reading about the internet as I was preparing for a presentation for my interns, who are all Gen Zs. And I remember, I was like, okay, they are basically people who are born between 2000 to 2012, I think, right? So they have not really experienced, like, they're still young. I mean, now they know what it is. But in my time, I remember giving the first presentation on internet in a teaching school, like actually explaining Netscape Navigator or showing what www stood for. And I was reading about it. I said, Jeff Bezos started Amazon, and he was so quick enough to understand the potential of e-commerce, like that Empire State thing. He started like in 1996, 1997. He started that. But I mean, you look back and you think of these visionaries and how it has changed our lives. The painting that was hanging here was an e-commerce quick buy, but that I didn't have to step out of my house to buy it. But things have become much easier, especially even for elderly people, and being able to reap those benefits. And
and what you say is absolutely on point. I mean, in a competitive market in a capitalist society, at some point it's a race to democratization, commoditization. So how do you differentiate as a brand? And as he noted, it always comes back to customer experience and customer service, right? How many times, and I used to work in retail and customer service, that's the first half of my career. How many times have you gone into a store or going to a website, let's say in store, you go to a store and you really want something, but you have such a bad experience, you walk out, right? You
Yeah.
drop it and walk out. Either the line's too long or someone's rude or no one's helpful. And you go, you know what? I don't need it that badly.
Yeah.
Right. And then how many times, conversely, how many times have you gone into a store where you don't really need anything, but they're so good and
Yeah.
kind and
Image is so
helpful
good.
that like
Yeah.
you buy something just because you feel sort of this like moral obligation to reciprocate the experience you've had. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's
As
it's
it's as the CEO of Perplexity. I don't know if you've heard his Lex Friedman podcast. The first
no,
thing he said was the customer is always right. The user is right. So if they complain about they're not able to find something or they don't know where to click on, it's not like they are dumb or they are not IT. They are right. Your design is not intuitive enough to tell them this is where you have to click. So every user uh, um, feedback that you get, treated very importantly to give them that better experience. So yeah, the user is always right is what I also believe in.
no,
And
it's
you have to,
perception is reality, right?
yeah, yeah,
So if their perception is there's a problem, then
yeah. They are not able to
they're
do
not
something.
wrong, right?
Yeah,
They
they're not
address
wrong.
it
Yeah.
somehow. It's funny. My the last agency I worked with, and I've worked with, I was there for the 7 years, 8 years. Um, the our CTO would talk about in his perfect world, even with the growth of platforms like Shopify and Magento, Adobe, BigCommerce in the commerce space. In his perfect world, we'd still be building everything in Cold Fusion. He comes from like he's like that's my favorite. I just want to code in Cold Fusion all day, every day. But what he used to say is that people are stupid and lazy.
Mm.
Online shoppers are stupid and lazy, and that goes for all of us, right? We
Oh,
we
yes.
don't we don't want to think, we
Mhm.
don't want to have to figure stuff out. We want things served up. We want it to be an easy
Yes.
experience online. It's no indictment or criticism of people. We're just, we're all
Yes.
busy and have things to do.
Yeah.
So you need to make things dead simple, right? And that
Simple.
goes not just
Keep
for
it simple and
consumers.
stupid. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Keep it simple and stupid, right?
Yeah,
Just
keep it
making
simple and
it
stupid. I know we're actually we went a lot longer than I thought we're gonna. I have a few more quick questions.
yeah.
One, what are you most excited about in the market, and what is next, that you are, if you can share, that you were looking to do with this new technology?
Sure. We've, I mean, there is this data and analytics that has always attracted me, and I always want to do things with it in a much better way using tools within Tableau. Let's say Tableau has predictive analytics built in it. It has this Einstein intelligence built into it. So I would like to, this generative AI built into it. So how can I polish my existing tools and give better data visualization? How can I create the most intuitive and like you come to it, the executives take one look at it and they know exactly what their business is doing. Or there's always that passion to do that and make things better. So that will always stay as we grow. Um, and then, of course, in terms of data engineering side, we are now storing our data into the Snowflake data warehouse. So there's always this potential for my team to upskill themselves, learn about new ways of accessing data from Snowflake, and understanding that whole architecture. Why is it so powerful? Why would we want to use it? And then, of course, my other favorite topic, generative AI. We've already come up with a plan for 2025 looking forward, which is we are waiting for GPT-5 and we are hoping for its potential to reason better, to apply logic better, to have less hallucinations and, kind of have better accuracy. So looking forward to that. And now that we have already a part of this framework, our ability to quickly leverage it also is within the moment the model becomes available, we should be able to give it to our CNF users. So there's that excitement there. We are looking at automation opportunities to embed what we learn using experimenting with Genie to now actually embedding it in workflows and automating that entire thing. So if we know this is how we want to do claim summarization, and for these 10 questions, the generative AI returns very deterministic answer which you can trust. Now let me put inside every claim that happens and then run it and do automation with it, right? So embedding in workflows automation. I've heard a lot about large action models, large language action models, which is the combination of automation plus large language models. So together, large action models, agents is something that has come to my reading. So that's what we want to explore next as we move forward. Of course, we also want to stay very aligned with our businesses. So we have a plan to conduct some surveys towards the end of the year, understand what they like in Genie, what they don't like, what else they would like, and how what they have experimented with Genie, how can they make it a part of. So kind of keeping that communication open. And the other side of it that has also got me interested, and we have a group of people within our company working on it, is the whole AI regulations, AI governance side, right?
Mhm.
So how do I, how as a company, how does Crum and Foster ensure that it is abiding by rules and regulations that protects itself plus the people, and also ensures that we are using it in the most effective way.
And I imagine there's an element in there. There is you've got the regulations around AI, and then you've got sort of the ethical piece of it. You've got like I think what's called AI truism, if I'm not mistaken, sort of the ethical AI, and
Mhm.
understanding the power of it, but also understanding what's what's morally and ethically right to use it for. And I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
always going to be a big discussion. Um,
absolutely.
I did not realize that the time flew so quickly. Frankly, I think we could talk for another 3 hours, and it would be amazing. I'd love to have you back on. Some of the things we didn't really get to. You sort of put it on as the also piece, which was the veracity piece. You talked about
Yeah,
volume. You talked about, let's see if I can remember them, the four V's:
velocity, volume,
volume,
velocity,
volume, velocity, variety,
yes,
and veracity, right? So the
right,
veracity piece of it, I think, is a really whole other interesting topic.
yeah,
The old bad data in, bad data out adage. How do
yeah.
you make sure things are accurate and precise? And then, so yeah, hopefully you come back and join me. I have a lightning round questions for you, which are
Yes,
totally off topic.
okay.
What is your favorite place to go on vacation?
I like going to India and
Going
spending time with my family.
where in India?
Uh, Bombay, like western part of India,
If if
primarily.
if you were a child in front of a wall and there was a map of India, how would you describe where you go?
So if India, if I have, India is rhombus shape, so
Yeah.
I would go to the leftmost point
Okay.
of the rhombus if I was facing the rhombus.
Okay. So Mumbai and Pune, where I know Fulcrum has offices, is sort of
Yeah,
on the bottom side of that left part
yeah,
of the rhombus, right? So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
going
I,
northwest of that.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And Pune, I mean, Pune is almost like a hometown to me. My husband and his family
Uh,
is there. I've been going to Pune since I was 3 years old. I love Pune. And
it
then
is a phenomenal government project. I was there last year to visit our offices there and the team there, and I was blown away by what the vision for Pune is. I think they're in phase 3, and there's going to be 13 phases or
yeah.
something. Which is all right. So favorite. If you were stuck on a desert island and you could only have one dish for the rest,
Okay.
every day for the rest of your life, what would that dish be?
Um, we have this dish in Maharashtra, like where I come from. It's a very staple dish, the most simplest, the soul food. Like it's rice and it's dal, very plain dal, and some clarified butter. Sorry, that's all, and some salt. So that's it, rice and dal.
That would be your forever meal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what technology are you most excited by right now in the market that you're seeing, whether it's relevant to your work or not? Like what's the thing that you're like, wow? I mean, outside of OpenAI and
Yeah, outside, right? Yeah, I
yeah.
should. I should think. I was reading about quantum computing and commercial fusion. So, I mean, I was just listening to this topic and just amazing things that I feel are going to happen in that area. The very possibility of storing like the whole qubits, or I think space. So, quantum computing, anything to do with energy and sustainability, and then space. I feel we are going to we are going to find something up there. So I think space is something that is truly exciting, and the commercial. If I get a chance, I would love to. I would love to do that.
Amazing.
Orbital round.
Kanchan, thank you so much. Again, Kanchan Soman from Crum Forster, the AVP of Data Analytics, but obviously so much more than that. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish we had more time today, but I hope you can join us down the road for another session on some other topics.
I would love that, Andrew. Thank you so much, everybody.
Right.
Have a good one.
Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yep. Thank you.